this segment, I want to talk about online versus offline and the fact that these are two different parts of your life. Now, there could be more depending upon your job and what you do, but for the most part, I want to say ever since the 90s, being able to grow up in an environment without the internet and then seeing how the internet has changed, not just simply changed in culture and society, but how it changed and worked and grew in our own personal lives, in the lives of my siblings, my parents, friends, even at school, and then a bit here and there at college. There is a lot there. And I'm not just talking about the growth of the technology itself, but the fact that your life in here and now is growing and you are maturing. Same thing with being online. Now, what I've noticed over the past couple of years is that the church has been forced to grow online. That is good in the sense that growth is being ushered in and being these churches are being prompted with a grow or die, simply because COVID hit in 2020 at the very beginning there, and well, there's a lot of places that shut down, including churches, and there's been a lot of online activities, like an increased amount of activities. Now, for some, it's by 50%, and by others, it's over 200%. And I'm talking about like Amazon, eBay, places where you can go to buy. So online businesses have really taken off, while stores in real life ended up shutting down, sometimes never reopening because, well, they ran out of money and they went bankrupt. So, not good. But at the same time, getting some air in here, it's hot. Alright. So, yeah, at the same time, developing your online personality, your online life is important to a very high degree from what I have seen. Now, I want to say that this is not necessary or mandatory at all, but it is still important, because if you're online at all for anything like social media wise, then you're going to want to set up who you are and your personality and everything, because you can be an entirely different person online. You're talking about a image versus a physical body, so to speak. Now, I'm going to touch back on one of the videos where I did image versus identity. And in this particular case, you can fashion something for yourself or something about yourself to show off to others. I said that a bit backwards there. This is incredibly important just because you have some flexibility on what parts of yourself you want to show and what parts of yourself you want to hide. I want to say that many people don't really care for that in the church, and being able to, they want to show up in person and be a part of everything in real life. And to that end, there has been no online presence for churches outside of like newsletters, emails, updates of some kind, prayer requests. I mean, back in the 90s, forums and these topic boards were like what you would normally see. And I want to say 2008 is when Facebook became really popular and took off. Before then, it was... Give me 1 second. It was... Okay. There was another popular site for social media that came right before Facebook. MySpace. There we go. MySpace. So MySpace itself became incredibly popular, and even though it's still around today, they deal mostly with music and stuff like that. I want to say that back then, it brought everything into a new light, and it to me anyway, it revolutionized what being online meant. For me on a personal level, imvu.com is a online 3D chat messenger where you can actually pick and design your own avatar, which is very different than what Facebook adopted not too long ago. Probably like 2 years ago, I think. Maybe it was a year ago. Year and a half ago? Anyway, whatever. Point I'm trying to say is they adopted something that okay, when I say they, I mean I'm talking about Facebook here. It's just, honestly, I don't like it. I'm not going to say it's crap or whatever. I'm just going to say I simply do not like it. But that's only because I was on IMVU. Now, Second Life was actually in the picture there, and that I don't have much to say about because I was on there for like maybe an hour or two, and then I was off. I don't have anything to say about that. But so for many people, being online, when they're online, they remember these companies, these businesses and stuff, that all of their memories are kind of like surrounding them. Like, this is who they are. This is where they were at online for the majority of the time. I'm not sure if you heard that, but there was a guy who does not have a muffler on his car, and he's just like making noise everywhere. Alright, let me see here. I'm gonna find a place to park and finish this. This is very good, and I don't want to get distracted or disrupted. I mean, there are bad drivers everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's another way to live. On the road, online, and offline. Yeah, bad drivers, bad people everywhere. Jeez. Anyway, moving on. You remember your time online by where you were at online and the majority of the time that you spent back then. Basically, I was trying to say. However, cultivating an image is what I'm getting at. It's the point that I'm getting at. There's a lot of potential in saying this is who you are, and not just simply subjecting yourself and other people, saying, bringing your physical, who you are on a physical level on the internet. Now, let me use the fact when I kind of just came across the whole on the road aspect. So, you have a car, you have a vehicle. I mean, it doesn't have to be a car. It could be a truck. I mean, anything, really. In a sense, some people say this is who they are. They're a truck person. They love their Ford trucks. Yeah, okay. Bad joke. No, I will never get a Ford truck, ever. Or at least I don't think I will. I mean, either way, there's a lot of jokes about that. Anyway, moving on. I'm more of a van person myself, simply because I like storing. I like having storage, being able to store stuff. Also, I have always been into what is mobile. Like when I was a kid, I used to go on trips with my parents in this old minivan, and we could basically camp out there. And it was a lot of fun going on these trips. Just the seats were comfortable, and we could watch movies while my parents drove, and it was awesome. So you're online, you're on the road life, and then being online. Like, everything is different, and very little is ever actually the same. And in many ways, it should not be the same. There should be distinctions between who you are on those levels. Tying this back to the church has almost always been offline in real life, with the exception of, like updates and news and presentations. And then COVID came along and changed that. They forced growth. I want to say that the majority of the churches that I have seen have focused a lot on growth and expansion, but only offline, not online. To an extent that is healthy, that is normal. But in another sense, when the world is becoming more interconnected with other parts of the world, and they increasingly become more digitized and more online, there comes a point when the church becomes irrelevant if they do not make these necessary changes and upgrades. And from what I've seen in some of these churches, many of these churches I've been to, it's a lot of older folk, older people. So the young people coming in and trying to take in and to help run the soundboards, the sound system, they're not really there. They're off usually at college. I mean, college towns, you could have some college students interacting with the church. I used to go to this one church in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it was honestly a blessing, but it was a college town. And as you very well know, college towns are perfect for new beginnings, but they are absolutely atrocious when it comes down to actual growth, because the students there focus on their lessons and they are going their own way. But when it comes down to a church, the real growth comes from the older members who are not actually going to college. So new beginnings, but not much growth from that aspect anyway. I really wish there'd be more people talking about the different directions that people could take and the consequences of these directions. Now, I want to say that being able to cultivate an online identity does take time. And in some cases, you can only do offline or online. You can't do them both at the same time. I think celebrities have a better chance at doing both at the same time just because they have a social media presence and they have a real life presence. But for others, you kind of have to just pick and choose which one you're going to do at which particular time. As far as I go, officially, I would be carrying this forward because in his mind is an image, a representation. I will probably go into more of that later because it's actually kind of dark. It's not something I've wanted to talk about, but it's a great place to start from because when I'm speaking, it's not really from my mind, it's from his mind. Or at least the memories, anyway. I gotta say, there's a lot there, and I don't really know how to break that down or to label it, to put points up and all of that. You know, basically to categorize it. I don't know. That's a different topic anyway. Moving on. I'm pretty much at the end anyway. Being online is quite an experience. When it comes down to dating, when it comes down to relationships, what I found is I could just do that less and less as time went on because my heart wasn't in it. So the more relationships you have, the more work it takes, the less you want to do and basically to be online. It's like you want to make these friendships, but you've given so much of yourself out. And this is both real life and online. You know, you put your heart into stuff, and then where does it go? I mean, for some people, it goes to a point where they connect with someone else, and then they go offline and start a family, a relationship. But for others, it's like there's no connecting. Now, there's another video I came across recently that talked about these statistics, and they're staggering. It's like, ever since social media came out, 80% of... okay, hang on one sec. Either they said 80% of... up to 80% of the men were unable to get dates or have sex or something like that. Or they said it was like a 30% increase of men who were unable to... I can't remember which one. It was either 80 or 30%. But it was... don't quote me. But it still staggered me just because it was a very high number. Like initially, I think it started at 30%, and now it's like 80%. The early 2000s are very different than the 2020s. That's basically over 10 years. Things have changed within 10 years quite dramatically, and the ability to connect with other people is both more expanded but also more monetized. And as you know, when it comes down to some of these free apps, you got to pay with your time just as much as your money. You can get these messages, but you can't look at them unless you pay this fee. There's these ads that you are forced to endure if you want to participate in whatever. This is mainly for music, but not really for dating. But they may incorporate something like that into, dating. I don't know if they ever will, or if there are places online that do that, but being able to, or being forced to endure ads when online, for the whole free aspect, really sucks. But yeah, wherever you go, you accrue baggage, trauma, damage, wear and tear, whatever you want to call it. Whatever applies, really. And it's just as true as it is online as it is in real life. Now, for the church, on the other hand, since this is interesting, for them it's more wear and tear and less damage. Unless, say, a pastor or a youth pastor ends up cheating and it's found out that they had an affair. It could literally disrupt the church to the point of it breaking off and self-destructing. I actually heard of that in a church that I used to go to near Scranton, Pennsylvania. I wasn't there during the fallout. I heard about it once I left, and I was reaching out to some of the people who were there back then. I think Louise, she was an older woman who I stayed in contact with for a couple of years back in the early 2000s. I don't know where she's at now. She's definitely retired, and she was an awesome, I don't want to say elder, but she was an awesome older woman who greatly participated in the church and all of that. There was other programs in the area that I was actually a part of that she helped out with as well. But anyway, seeing the church being destroyed due to the act of that youth pastor who ended up cheating on his wife really ended up shaking the church apart. It didn't help that the program I was a part of back then fell apart and it just disintegrated. But the program itself was shut down, so to speak. And I don't want to go into that right now, but I was a part of something, and I ended up going to this church. So, and it turned out to be a very excellent experience for myself and everyone else there. I was the 7th graduate of this particular program, and I want to say everything was fine, but roughly just under 2 years after having left the program, the church ended up falling apart, if I remember correctly. And it really caused a lot of issues. So, obviously having an online presence and all of that needs to be built up, but it won't be affected necessarily in the same way, like stuff online, offline. You make a mistake here in real life, it may not actually carry over to being online. But if videos or pictures are captured or edited, because fake images exist now, and I think they're called deep fakes. There was one of the Russian president and one of Biden that was actually manufactured that were completely fake, literally in the past year. So deep fakes exist, and they're terrifying in the sense that you can have people look like they're doing or saying something without it actually being them. Photoshop has existed for over a decade, and that used to be a legit horrifying thing for celebrities, where they could be edited to look like they had done something incriminating or controversial, you know. The church doesn't quite have that. However, wrapping all of this up, since it's getting pretty long, the church has been forced in the past couple of years to expand online or basically die. So they're forced to being developed in online representation or image, which I think is very much needed. And it's been, like, this has been needed for 5 to 10 years at the very least. The fact that there's so many different churches out there is something else that you should take into account, because there's different types, there's different kinds. Some are local and some are actually, they're part of a chain going across the country. Now, since I live over here in the US, this may be different for those who live elsewhere. Like in China, for example, Christians and the church is actively persecuted over there. Like, I had an old family friend who used to teach over there, and you talk about God or Jesus, you and your family would be killed. I don't know when, but it would happen. And there was no freedom of speech when talking about your beliefs and all that, which is a huge blessing when being online, because you have that freedom there. It's being taken away. Censorship and all of that is actually making it harder to be who you want to be and who you are when you're online. Two different things, by the way. I don't think there's anything else to add to this. Anything else to add would be going down a very specific route. But seeing things change, grow, and then get worse in some cases, rather than just outright die, yeah, it's quite an experience. All right, until next time.